Today I'm going to teach you how to bench press a heavy weight, teach you how to warm up for a heavy bench press session, how to unrack the barbell when you don't have a spotter, how to build pegs. I should be charging you for this, but I'm not going to. All you need to do is follow what I say, because I've been doing this for the last over 20 years. I learned how to bench press from the best, the most technical heavyweight bencher in the world. His name's Kirill Sarchev, and I'm going to teach you all of these tips that I didn't know in the first 10 years of my training, and it took me a long time to actually learn how to bench press heavy, and I'm going to teach you this from the absolute beginning, so you don't have to go through all of the mistakes that I went through. I like to warm up with dumbbells, high reps. This is going to be my first weight, which is going to be, it will be 75 kilograms. So I like to do about 75 kilograms worth of dumbbell pressing so that when I come to the barbell, I'm already warm for that. The reason I start with dumbbells is because it's light and it allows me to take my shoulder joint through a longer range of motion than the barbell. So have a look at the way that I do it as well. I use a neutral grip, which is a lot more comfortable for the shoulder joint, and it allows me to take the movement through a much longer range of motion. Very good for the shoulders to be strong through a full range of motion. And I'll be doing, I don't know, 20 or so repetitions. I'm not really counting. Lots and lots of reps. And then after I finish this, I'm gonna go and do the opposing muscle groups. So come and check this out. I love to warm up my bench press with lat pull down. And it's not just about training the lats or anything like that. It's mainly about taking the shoulder joint through the range of motion that I'm going to be using for the bench press. So the technique that I use for a bench press is where I keep my shoulder blades back and down towards my back pockets, which is, come behind me and have a look at the technique that I use for the lat pull down, the exact bottom position. So here, see that position? So this is relaxed for a lat pull down, but then in a bench press, this is where I keep my shoulder blades back and down like you're going to be doing a lat pull down. So I'm reinforcing that technique. So people talk about pulling your shoulder blades together. That's called retraction of the scapula. But one of the most important parts of a bench press for shoulder health isn't just the retraction, it's also the depression. That's how we use our lats. Think about increasing the distance between the shoulders and our ears. So drop the entire shoulder girdle. So you don't want to be doing this. If you're shrugging, your lats aren't on. If we're depressing, this is how we use our lats to hold our shoulder joint in place so that we can lift a heavy weight. So the lats, one of their roles, of course, is like these things, like pulling down a bar. So that's adduction, that's extension, that's lat function. Something else they do is, this is a ball and socket joint. So the head of this bone here, which is the head of the humerus, sits inside the shoulder blade, the socket. And what the lats do when they are active is they depress the head of the humerus to allow more room for that shoulder to move. So that's another nice reason why we want our lats on, to maintain shoulder health through a bench press. I'm gonna go back and forth between dumbbells and lat pull downs up until I get to, what's half of 75 is 37.5 kilograms. So up until I get to a 37.5 kilogram dumbbell press. When I do proper training with dumbbells, I'll have a controlled eccentric. Bang, bang. But this is just warming up. I'm just taking the joint through the motion. When I come to the barbell, I'll be using a more controlled tempo as well. But this is rep work, rep work. It's not the exact technique that I want to be benching with.
Following the same principles as your squat warm-up.
Almost following the same principles as my squat warm-up. The only difference is it's not quite the bench press. So this exercise, the lat pull down, or the dumbbell work is not quite the bench press. So when I do my squat warm-up, I try and use the exact technique from an empty barbell to the top weight, the same way, the whole way through. So when I touch an empty barbell, I try and think of the exact same technique. And that's gonna happen when I touch the barbell. But this isn't barbell work. So this is just using other exercises to target the muscles that I'm gonna be using in the bench press, and warm up, not just the muscles, the joint through the full range of motion. So what did I just do? 30 kilograms. I'll be able to go 37. You like that technique that I used to hand the weight to me? That's another cheat code. When I do a flat bench, the rule is the flatter the bench, the higher up your thigh, place the dumbbells, right? So I'll show you in real time. I'll get heavier ones so you can see. And I can do this with the heaviest ones in here. A mistake a lot of people make is they have that too high here and they try and throw the dumbbells to themselves and it puts them off balance. On a flat bench with dumbbells, have the dumbbells high on your thighs and you're not using any energy and it places the dumbbells exactly where you need them to start pressing. The rules change when you do shoulders. Flatter the bench, the higher up the thigh. The more incline we go, the further down the thigh, closer to the knee. So for a shoulder press, on the knee, so I can hand the dumbbell to myself. There's one hack for you. Stop asking me questions. I'm fucking need to breathe, bro. Fuck. Pre-workout, long black with honey. And this is my other drink today, which is just tea with honey. Could just be water. Usually it is just water with my electrolytes, which I've also had today. But I like sipping on a tea. Yeah, this will be my last set. I'll go heavier and heavier every set. Okay, now my shoulders are warm and they're ready to go. Unracking from myself. It's a really hard thing. Easy thing to do when it's a lightweight, but when it gets heavier and heavier, can potentially take your shoulders out of position, which has happened to me in the past. And as a consequence, I tore my pec. The weight was 230 kilograms, which I was able to do. But what happens is when you unrack the weight, you pull your shoulder blades out of position to unrack the weight. And then you're laying on a bench, and then to bring the bar down, you want to be able to pull the shoulder blades back in to retraction as the bar comes to your chest. But because you're laying on the bench, it restricts your shoulder blades from moving where they need to move. So instead of having the shoulder blades back in the bottom position, the shoulder blades are out of position. And when you bring the barbell down with the shoulder blades out of position, the shoulders aren't loaded correctly and it puts uneven distribution on the muscles. And that's when I tore my pec. So I'm going to teach you how to avoid that. Sit at the edge of the bench. So when you lay down, you don't bump your head on the barbell. From here, I slide back so that I can bring my feet back and I get on the balls of my feet. So this is a technique that everyone asks about with up on the balls of the feet. I thought you're supposed to have your feet flat, or in competition, well, not all competitions need a flat foot. Some of them do, yes. I'm not in the competition. I'm in the gym, and this is the strongest way, up on the balls of the feet, so that I can get leverage and push my heels downwards. Okay, so when I say heels down, no, they don't touch the ground because they're so far back. If they weren't back, I can touch the ground, but when I'm up on the balls of the feet, I push down as hard as I can, and they won't touch the ground. But what I do is initiate the arch in my lower back so that it carries over to the arch in my upper back. Are you ready? So heels down, slide into position, right? See that? Watch my chest side. My heels are relaxed. Now when I push my heels down, my chest height raises because it increases my arch. From here, big breath, hold my breath. Hold my breath for the whole set. That is part of how I bench press. Well, it is how I bench press, but I just didn't tell you every cue. We're gonna do that step by step. Today's session, my goal is to get 155 kilograms for 2 sets of 10, which is good, it's heavy, but technically it's my light day. So if you're following the sessions that I have on the weekends with Big Vasa, last week I did 180 kilograms for 4, that's my heavy day. So I like to do 2 times a week. 1 day light with high reps, 1 day heavy with lower reps. So this is my light with high reps. What I'm doing is start with 75 and I'm gonna go 20 kilogram jumps. 75, 95, 115, 135, 155. So here's a few new cues for you. So remember, doing the same thing. Start at the edge of the bench. Now what I wanna do is I slide back so that I can get my feet back into position, heels down. A lot of people say, come down to the barbells in line with your eyes. I disagree with this. That's too far down. That means you have to reach too far back. So I like to say, barbell in line with like your mouth and chin. So eyes behind the barbell so that you don't have to travel so far back. The further back you travel, the more your shoulder blades have to come out of position. I don't want them out of position. So eyes behind the barbell, barbell in line with your mouth. From here, I use the bar to wedge my shoulder blades back and down. I don't want to take them out of position here. Now here's the next cue that is very important for self-unracking. There's a technique that a lot of people teach is to tuck the elbows and drag the weight off. Weak. You can do that for a light weight, but when you get to the maximal loads, you will not be able to do it. The way that you have to do it is elbows under the bar. Okay, so elbows must be stacked under the bar from start to finish, from the unrack and through the entire rep. So that is stacked, that is strong. So with the unrack, don't try and tuck your elbows. Flare the elbows for the unrack. Externally rotate to tuck them. That's how we bring the bar back, and we've maintained that shoulder blade position from start to finish. That is the important cue. Start with the elbows flared. The way that we unrack is we lock the elbow out. So we don't push with your shoulders, you push with your triceps. So elbows flared, extend the elbow joint, externally rotate, and then we press away. So that's 105. 105. I think I said all the numbers wrong. 105. The next one's going to be 125. No, wrong. 115. Then it's going to be 135. So I've got one more warm-up set. 135, and then we go 155, which will be our top set for the day. If I get it, I mean, the plan is 155 for 10. I should be strong enough for it, but you never know. If I don't get 155 for 10, I'll be sad that I let you down because I told you that I was going to do 155 for 10. But I'll tell you another tip that I have with your programming. If you followed, 2 days ago I did heavy squats. So heavy squats, especially low bar, can cause elbow pain and bicep pain and brachialis pain. Sore arms, in other words, which means if you try and bench press heavy the next day, your arms aren't going to like you. What's my solution to this? My solution is if you to have 2 bench press days, make sure that the light bench press day is scheduled after squat day. I also recommend have a day off straight after squat day. So my squats were Monday, yesterday was Tuesday, I did nothing. Today's Wednesday, so I believe that's adequate recovery to come into my light session. So I wouldn't want to do my, heavy session this close to my squats. That's torture for my arms. And you're just not as strong. Maybe I won't even be strong enough to do the 155 for 10. That's my point. That's my point. I mean, I should be. I think I am. How long do I rest between these sets? When it's a lightweight, I'm not resting at all. Like however long it takes to load the plates. But then as it gets heavier and heavier, this is still pretty easy. 135 kilograms. I probably like to take about 3 or so minutes, but this is my last warm-up set. I'll probably take about 5 minutes after this to my first top set. But then, once I've done my first top set, it's going to be a high RPE. It's probably going to be like a 9 RPE. Maybe even 10, I don't know, hopefully not 10. But if it's a high RPE like that, for my bench press, I like anywhere between 8 up to 10 minutes, which some people think, you're going to cool down. No, not when I'm doing, all out effort with a weight that heavy. If you're not as strong, and when I was not as strong, I wouldn't have taken 10 minutes. Yeah, it would have cooled me down. But for this level, 8 to 10 minutes. As for now, I'm well rested. Yeah, easy. Remember, I know it's called a warm-up, but technically I'm already warm. I was already warm by the time I came to the first weight. But it's about teaching the body what the heavier weights incrementally, what they feel like, so that my nervous system can accept it when I unrack 155 kilograms. So what I want is to unrack 155 and it feels comfortable. So far, so good. I think 155 for 10 is gonna happen today. Feels good. Grip position, elbow position, bar path. Whew. There's so many cues that you can think of. Bar path, let's talk about bar path. The barbell, objectively, if you were to look from side on, the barbell would kind of come down, people call it a J curve or whatever it might be. It follows the elbow, so when we're tucking the elbows, they're over the shoulder, but then as we bring the bar down to our sternum, there's slight tuck. So the barbell must curve slightly. But in my opinion, when people focus too much on the curved bar path, they exaggerate it and take it out of the line. So what I actually teach people is to not think about changing the bar path. Just think about down and up, and it will naturally go where it's supposed to go. That is, of course, if your body's moving correctly. So what is correctly? Remember the shoulder position that I taught you, which is to pull the shoulder blades back and down. When you pull the shoulder blades back and down, that'll create natural external rotation of the upper arm bone, which will create natural tucking of the elbows. So I don't teach people to tuck the elbows. That's an important cue for a lot of people. But I say, if you're moving correctly, the elbows will tuck where they should go. So that's with me, shoulders back and down, and the elbows will just naturally go where they want to go, which is a slight tuck. So have a look at where my elbow is in relation to my shoulders. Start point over the shoulders. When I bring the bar down to my chest, it's roughly about a 45 degrees of tuck, and then straight back up. So there's the curve. What's my advice? Again, don't think about the curve. Think down and up, and the natural curve will take its course. That was light. Set one done. Easy peasy. Stronger than I thought, actually. I thought maybe it would be like I'd grind out the 10th rep and one rep in, or maybe one rep in reserve, but I feel like I had 12 on that, maybe 13, I don't know. You guys decide. Now, breath hold. Check this out. Why do I hold my breath? Did you see how I dropped the barbell on my chest? So the more I fill my belly and my body with air, the tighter my body will be, and the less the barbell will sink into my chest. So if I don't have a belly full of air, my torso won't be tight, it'll be loose, and the barbell will drop really, really far. So there's reason number one. Reason number two is check out the entire position that I'm doing. The position that I'm doing is, feet back, heels down. Let's talk about the entire chain. Heels down, okay? Look at this bone here. That's hip joint extension. Hip joint extension is paired with anterior tilt of the pelvis. So that's my pelvis going this way. So this is posterior tilt, like butt wink. Anterior tilt is this way. And look at how that influences my spine. When I extend my hip and anteriorly tilt my pelvis, it arches my back. What's the next thing that happens when I arch my back? So watch this, and you guys feel it at home. Arch your back, arch your back, arch your back. Feel where your shoulder blades naturally go. They will naturally come back into the position that I want them to be in a bench press. So what's the opposite of that is flexion. So you guys feel it. So bend over, don't think about your shoulders. Just round your upper back and tell me where your shoulder blades went. So flexion is paired with protraction of the scapula. Extension is paired with retraction of the scapula. And a few other things. The next one is external rotation. So extension, so arching the back, pulls the shoulder blades back together and externally rotates my arm. Right, so this is what I mean by when the body's moving correctly, the bar will just go down its natural path. So if you're doing all of these arches, that's what's gonna happen. Now here's the next thing that's paired with that, is inhalation. So when I inhale, that's gonna increase the size of my rib cage and flare my ribs, which increases the arch of my upper back. This is a different type of brace that you'd want for a squat or a deadlift. You want ribs down in a squat and a deadlift, but you want ribs extended, ribs up in a bench press. Now, when I do all of that, that's what's holding my shoulders in the right position and shoulder blades retracted. or pulling my shoulder blades back and down towards my back pockets. When I exhale, it's paired with the opposite of that. Of course, you can try and hold this in position and still breathe, and it doesn't force you to round that much. However, it will drop your rib cage a little bit. And when your rib cage drops a little bit, your spine also goes a little bit into flexion. When your spine goes a little bit into flexion, your shoulder blades go a little bit into protraction. How many little bits of all of that do you want when you're trying to bench press the heaviest weight possible? The answer is 0 little bits, please, and thank you. So that's why when I want to maximize my position, maximize my strength, maximize everything, that's why I'm holding that position as tight as possible, and that's why I don't even exhale in between reps. I hold it from the unrack, so I go, and then I exhale on completion of the rep. Yes, there is a risk. If you have cardiovascular issues, you could, of course, die. But in my experience, like this is just like a warning, a disclaimer. Like, I'm not giving you the advice to do that. All I'm telling you is what I do and what I see many, many high-level benchers do. So most of the people that I'm working with, that I've ever worked with, that I've ever seen at the highest level, don't have that level of cardiovascular disease. I'll tell you what's possible, usually with people with cardiovascular disease in the elderly population, like the Valsalva maneuver, which is the breath hold and exerting force to do their big last poo on the toilet, has been the cause of death for some people. So it's definitely possible to die from holding your breath and exerting force to that degree. So therefore, there's my disclaimer. Is it going to happen to you? Probably not. But I'm not telling you to do it at the same time. So that's always the question that I'm asked. Aren't you going to die when you hold your breath and all these things? Maybe, I don't know. Haven't died yet. I hope I don't. Fingers crossed. And I've never seen anyone die from that. The skeleton, maybe that was the cause of his death. I don't know. He doesn't talk to me. Good one. Now, my secondary exercise is going to be an incline dumbbell press. Accessories. Here's the rule of accessories. I just did a bench press, which is a horizontal push plane. So that's on flat angle. So don't go from a flat angle and do more work just with dumbbells on a flat angle again. So therefore, don't do flat dumbbell press to complement your flat bench press. It's kind of pointless. You're hitting the muscles on the same angle, even though there are some small differences. So that's why I'll always like to have some slight difference with the angle that I'm using. If you're following my heavy session, you'll know that I do heavy bench press, and then I do a seated shoulder press as my secondary. So that's why this is going to be another angle that I'm not hitting there. So this is going to be an incline press with a neutral grip. So that's another thing that I like to do. With the barbell, you're doing so much work in the pronated grip. Why do more pronated pressing when you've got the option to move the dumbbells freely however the shoulders want to put them? And here's the funny thing, when we're doing a barbell press, we're trying to tuck our elbows anyway. So if the hand was to follow, it would be a somewhat neutral position. So it's a little bit strange when people come to the dumbbells when they have got the option to move it wherever they want, and they use that pronated grip. So that's why I like to use a neutral grip. I'm going to do one warm-up set. Remember, I'm warm, but it's just a slightly different angle. So I'm going to have a feel set. Maybe I'll do 37 kilograms, just because it's conveniently the lightest one on this table. I don't want to go straight to the heavy one, so I'll do this one here, just to feel it, a few reps. And then I will come to maybe 55s today. Remember the position. So I'm not on a flat press, so I don't want to have it really, really high up on my lap. And I'm not seated dumbbell shoulder press, so I don't need it all the way on my knees. So it's closer to my knees now. Hand it to myself. Neutral grip. Neutral doesn't mean parallel necessarily. It's just the comfortable angle. Full stretch. Don't need to work hard on that. That's just a feel set before I go to the 55s.
I have a question. Belt?
Belt. So this is something for me. I did heavy squats the other day, so I don't really need to have the belt on for the deadlifts. But actually, when I'm bending over to grab these, that's when the belt comes in handy. So when I'm doing a flat bench, I hold my breath. Remember, I want my body to be firm, and having the belt on makes my body even firmer, so the bar doesn't really sink so deep into my chest. But when I'm doing dumbbells, realistically, the only reason I'm using the belt is just for the unrack when I take those heavy dumbbells off here. So it doesn't really do a whole lot for my dumbbell pressing, but it does for my flat bench press. You're looking at me in the mirror. We had to clean the mirror as well.
Do you have a bench number you're working on?
Yeah, I do. So what I would like to do is get back to 220 kilograms.
Is that your max?
No, my best is 250. My best is 250, but I weighed about 116 kilograms when I did that. Right now I'm 100. Actually, when I competed the first time in the 100 class, I bench pressed 220. But there's some differences. The difference is I wasn't 100. I was 105, and I did a water cut, 24-hour weigh-in, weighed in at 100, and then replenished, rehydrated, and I was probably about 105 kilograms competing in the 100 class. That's what people do with the 24-hour weigh-ins. So now I'm a legitimate 100 kilograms. But still, I would like to be able to get back to 220 kilograms. I'd say right now I'm at about 205-ish. So 220, like it'd be logical for me to say my goal is 210. But 210 is kind of like one of those non-numbers. 220, that's not a non-number. That's 5 blue plates, So that's why that's my goal. 5 blue plates aside. Can I do that? Well, I've done it before. Not at this body weight though. So that would be a body weight PB actually. So that's the number. How far away am I? A couple months. Not there yet. Not there yet. Couple of months of good training, good dieting. Okay?
Does diet affect your training?
Absolutely. Diet absolutely affects my training. And to be honest with you, when I say good dieting, I think to get 220 again, I think I might need to get my body weight back up to 105. Because that's what I would do if I was to compete again, which I might, compete in the 100 class. So I would like to, eat well and do a clean bulk to 105. What does clean bulk mean? Clean bulk compared to dirty bulk. Dirty bulk is, I could very easily get to 105 kilograms if I just ate burgers and pizzas and fast food and high calorie food. That'd just make me a big fatso. But a clean bulk would be a slower process with nutritious food, unprocessed, hopefully. And of course, that's going to be a lot harder. You'd still have to put on 5 kilograms in a year, you can't do that with muscle. You'd have to still put on some type of fat. Fine. But if I did it with, shitty processed food and pizzas and burgers, it'd be, 1 kilogram of muscle and 4 kilograms of fat. This way, if it's a clean bulk, it'll be like 2.5 kilograms of muscle and 2.5 kilograms of fat. Of course, the nutritionists at home are saying, oh, you haven't counted in the water and all that stuff. Yes, water as well. So maybe 2 kilos of muscle in a year for me, that's a good year if I eat really, really well. And then the rest will be, water and fat. So I think that's what I realistically need to be is 105 to get to a 220 bench again. And, I think I'd like to compete. And that's what I'd want to hit if I was to compete. I'd want to hit a 220 bench, maybe a 310 squat.
How old are you again?
Huh?
How old are you again?
I'm 43 years old. Yeah, someone mentioned in the comments after I didn't even know this, but they said I did a 285 unpeaked squat, and that's 10 kilograms off the Australian record. I don't even know what the Australian record is. But I don't go for that. That's a master's record is what they said for my age. I don't like that. I don't want to go for a master's record. That record sucks. I want to do the open record. So if it's not an open record, it's not a record. So, but anyway, I don't know if it's going to be hitting any records, but these are just numbers that I think I can do. I think I can get to about a 310 squat. I think I can get to a 220 bench. And I think I can do, 330 kilogram deadlift in this class. If I get those numbers again, I'll do a comp. All right, let's go 55 kilograms. Yeah, I should be able to do this for 12s. You know, that's the hardest part is putting it back. See how awkward it is? That's why I have the belt. Like, anyway, set number 1. I'll do one more set of 12 and then we'll do some back work. My breathing is different for a dumbbell. I don't need to hold that arch position. So the idea of holding my breath for the bench press is when I'm maintaining that position because I don't want to be pulled out of that position. But because I'm not arching, I mean there's some arch, but it's not the same exaggerated arch. Because I don't need to hold that position with dumbbells, I don't need to hold my breath. So yeah, I'll exhale, I'll reset my breath in between each rep. So the flat bench press is the only exercise that I personally don't recommend, but I just do it. That's the only exercise that I hold my breath for the whole set. I do not hold my breath for an entire set of squats unless it's just 1 rep, or deadlifts, or anything that I'm standing. So that's one of those things when people faint, they need the blood in their head. So that's why the body naturally knows, pass out and you'll end up on the floor. And then that's where the blood starts circulating in your head again and then you wake up. So that's why when I'm laying down in a bench press, there's blood flow in my head and I don't pass out. But if you're standing, you can very easily pass out if you're holding your breath for multiple reps. So there's a tip for you at home. If any of your friends are passing out during their lifts, don't be a good friend and hold them upright. They want to lay down. They want to get blood to their head. Lay them on the floor carefully. Lay them on the down. Lay them on the floor. Lay them on the floor, not on the down. Okay, so what's next? I want complete strength in all of my pushing muscles. There is one muscle that I've neglected, and that is one of the heads of the triceps, right? So a lot of people ask the question, is it enough to just do compound exercises? Is that enough to build your arms? Technically, no. The nature of the biceps and triceps is the biceps and one head of the long head of the triceps are biarticular muscles. So they cross 2 joints. So what does that mean when we do like a heavy press? Shoulder joint flexion, so that's shoulder doing this way, and elbow extension are conflicting actions of the tricep. The tricep wants to go extension, extension, not flexion, extension. So the length of that long head of the tricep doesn't change. So it's not very good to build the long head of the tricep. So if all you do is compound pressing for triceps work, you are not getting the most out of the long head of the triceps. Same applies for biceps because the biceps cross the shoulder joint. They flex the elbow and they flex the shoulder. And when you're doing a row, it's flexion of the elbow, but then it's extension of the shoulder, which is conflicting actions. So if you want proper biceps, don't just do rows, pull-ups, and pull-downs. You need to incorporate isolated elbow flexion work for biceps. So if you want complete pushing strength development, this is all planes. So you go, horizontal, that's 45, but I also include upright. So you go horizontal push, vertical push, and then triceps. That is complete, all of the pushing muscles done. So next up, tricep extension with my favorite tricep extension exercise, skull crusher.
Does the tricep size or strength help you with the bench?
Of course it does, because it's one of the pressing muscles. Now, this also depends how you press. Now, the wider the grip, usually if you look at the best benches in the world and you see wide grip bench presses, they don't use as much of their tricep as the closer grip presses. So if you see people, see what I'm saying is, I usually say the strongest grip, the most efficient position for a bench press is on the outer ring. So that's the widest grip possible. And then people say things like, oh, what about, and I'll give you some examples. Julius Maddox doesn't hold it out there. Well, look at his arch. He's also not arching. I don't know this as a fact, but I bet you he probably feels that it's uncomfortable to hold it wide because he doesn't arch. Remember the rule, if you don't arch, it's not going to be comfortable to hold it wide, and I know that that's why. Not sure if he knows that or if he said that or anything, that's just my own speculation. But someone else that I consider, a fellow by the name of Jeremy Hornster, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's a 110 kilogram bench presser with around the 300 kilogram raw bench press mark. It could be more than that, I don't know the exact numbers. That's the best in the world in that weight class, I think. I think there's another fellow, Tomanello, I don't know how to pronounce his name either. I think he may even be better than him at the moment. But anyway, Jeremy Hornster, close grip again. He doesn't use that wide grip. He's using a very different technique to what I use. look at the size of that guy's triceps. So the closer the grip, the more demanding it is on the triceps. If you use a wide grip, you probably don't use the triceps as much. However, it is still one of those pushing muscles. And having strong triceps, strength is never a weakness, as Mark Bell says. So it's not going to make you weaker to have strong triceps. But in my opinion, if you're a technical bencher, especially if you use a wide grip and a big arch, you technically, all you need to do is just do more benching and more pressing, and you will continue to move forward in your bench press without having to do accessory tricep work. But that's not me. Right now, I like to add triceps because I don't want to exclude any of my muscles. I want all of my muscles to be strong. So that's why I'm including it. And also, it doesn't hurt. It's not going to make me weaker. I know that for sure. Skull press, skull crush, I don't know, call it what you want. You know what it is, so it's easy bar. That's a nice, comfortable position compared to a straight bar, right? So I'm gonna hold it on this grip here. Now, what I'm gonna be focusing on is, you know, when my shoulder is directly here, this is stacked and there's no load being placed on the tricep. So in the bottom position, I want my arm to always be slightly backwards, which increases the tension on the triceps from start to finish. So that's a bit of a bodybuilding trick. So if I want to relax my tricep, I'll bring my arm stacked so there's no load being placed on the muscle. So that's me resting, if you ever see that happening. So what I want to do is keep it back and maximize elbow bend. So where the elbows are poked out or in, it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting full amount of elbow joint flexion. All right, so how do we know that? If you, at the bottom position, if you put a pen here and let go of it, the pen would be stuck here between your bicep and your forearm. Let's have a look if that's the case with me. So arms back, and I bring it back, bend the elbows, keep them back, bend the elbows, and I don't go over here. So that's my arms rested. See that? So I keep them back. There's tension on the triceps. Bend the elbows maximally, keep the tension, keep the tension, keep the tension. Oh. I don't know how many reps that was. Do you train to failure or not? So this is a discussion that I had with a good friend of mine the other day. And I often give rules of, you know, the whole session needs to be conservative, don't go to fail. Well, it depends on the exercise. So for big exercises like the start of the day, I don't want to take that to fail. That's very energy consuming, it's hard to recover from, and it's hard to progress from week to week, right? But then we come to isolation exercises. Like, this is hard, but it's an isolation exercise. What do you think is going to happen if I take this to failure? Probably not much. Like, it's not really hard for me to recover from, right? So taking an isolation exercise to failure, I'm all for it. I still want to allow room to be able to progress from week to week, but I think I'll be able to. I think I'll be able to add 2.5 kilograms each side. Maybe I'll do less reps. Totally fine. That's totally fine. But the main movements, so the bench press, and that applies to like if you're doing big squats and deadlifts or big compound movements. I don't recommend taking them to failure. Leave rep or 3, you know, 1, 2, 3 reps in reserve. That's really, really good. And that's enough for adequate stimulation and skill work and strength development. But then when you're doing isolation exercise, send it. Take it to failure, you know, within reason. Look at the rep range that I did. I didn't do like a heavy single on an isolation exercise. That's silly, it's not enough stimulation. So high rep work, take it to failure. Walk out of the session with a big tricep pump. There's my recommendation to you. I'll do one more set, and then we'll do some back.
Why do you do back on the...
It's just how I've always trained. You know, I can do back on a separate day. Now, this is how I've always trained. I'll normally superset push with pull, and that saves me time. So I'll tell you a secret about supersets. You don't get superior results with supersets. It just saves you time, right? So one way of doing it for strength is called opposing muscle supersets. So I prescribe, and I used to do for myself, like a bench press, and then wait a couple of minutes, set of rows or pull downs, and then back and forth between those, right? So instead of doing what I did today, which was bench press, wait 8 minutes, bench press, you know, and then a long rest, that takes a long time. So an efficient way of doing it is bench press, wait 4 minutes, lat pull down, 4 minutes, come back to the bench press, 4 minutes. So that's called opposing muscle supersets, which is great for saving time in the gym. But that's all you're doing is really saving time, which is important for a lot of people. But for me, this is my job. I'm very lucky that this is my job, and I don't need to save time. I can have a 2-hour session if I want, which is typically how long these sessions are. But if I needed to be in and out real quick, I'd be supersetting between the two. Now, here's the next thing. If I was competing, or if I was coaching someone who was competing, I wouldn't superset. So I wouldn't do a heavy bench press. I'd make them rest for the long duration, because although it's not hugely fatiguing to do opposing muscle group supersets, it still creates some central fatigue. So it does make you a little bit tired, and it can slightly negatively impact your main work. So if it was training someone for competition, I'd probably do the bench press or the competition lift as a standalone, and then I would do the accessories. I would have typically done the dumbbell presses, superset that with pull downs or rows or whatever the opposing muscle group is. And then I'd go the tricep extension, and I'd pair that with bicep curls. Like, that's a really efficient way of training, but that's all. The research shows us now, it doesn't make you stronger than if you didn't superset. All it does is save you time, which is a great thing. But some people, they've got all the time in the world, which is kind of me. I don't have all the time in the world. After 2 hours, I get pretty hungry. So I don't want to be training for longer than 2 hours. But right now, let's go and do back. This is my favorite back building exercise, right? So see this grip? This is one of those mag grips, lots of different brands. Not sponsored by anyone, but these are really nice and comfortable. So this is kind of like neutral width, and it's a little bit pronated, which is a really nice, comfortable angle for me. Now, the way that I do my lat pull downs is a very complete upper back building exercise. So you've got 2 ways that I say is, like, if you're really, really vertical and have the elbows down, that's where it really targets the lats. I'll show you. So really vertical, elbows down. That's a lot of focus on the lats. And then the next way, which is the way I like to do it, is slightly leaning back so that we allow for some focus on shoulder blades coming back and down. And so they're 2 slightly different ways, slightly different emphasis, but in my opinion, I'll always want to make sure I'm targeting the mid-back muscles. I don't really care to have the big lat look. I don't really care. Like, yeah, this strengthens the hell out of my lats. But when I train, like, a bodybuilder might really want to focus on isolating the lats. But whenever I'm training a strength athlete, I say, why not get complete upper back development? So lats with the middle back muscles. So whenever I do my rows, pull-ups, and pull-downs, that's the technique I want, which is full stretch, shoulder blades back and down. Full stretch, shoulder blades back and down, right? So that's me now. Slightly leaning back, not too much, just a little bit. Full stretch, shoulder blades back and down. Yeah, that's the cues. Full stretch, shoulder blades back and down. So the next thing as well, so look at my shoulders. So this is a problem that a lot of people do, is that whole thing of when they pull the bar to the chest, they go, So the lats roll is to drop the entire shoulder girdle, right? So that's elevation, that's depression. You can't elevate and depress at the same time. So if you're bringing the bar down and your shoulder comes up like this, you're not using your lats as best as you can, right? So that's what you really want to focus on for 2 reasons: shoulder strength, but also shoulder function, right? So learning how to drop the entire shoulder girdle, pick the chest up towards the bar, full stretch. Of course, the shoulder girdle comes up here, but as you're bringing it down, drop the entire shoulder girdle. Shoulder blades back and down towards the back pockets. I don't know how many reps that was. That was maybe, I don't know, a couple of reps in reserve, but I will go heavier on the next set.
I think people should have paid for this.
Yeah, I know. This is like fully unpaid session. You don't have to pay me though. You're welcome. This is stuff that I wish I knew when I started. You know, like the first, I've been a coach for, this is probably about 23 years now, long time. The first 10 years of that, I thought I knew a lot, but I didn't really know a hell of a lot. Like, I look back at back then, it's like, oh, I cringe at some of the stuff that I used to do. But that's right. I had to learn all of these things. It took me a long time to learn these things. And, you know, this is kind of like my mission, I guess, is to teach people all the shit that I didn't know. Like, I'm pretty strong, but I didn't start off pretty strong. I just worked hard, you know, learned along the way, learned a lot along the way, and was kind of like obsessed with I just always wanted to be stronger. Anyway, I'd have saved so much time if I knew all of this when I first started, but I didn't. So now you guys know. So if you're a newbie, if you're a beginner in the gym, my first bench press was 30 kilograms for 8 reps, and I wanted to get more. I was 16 years old. All of my friends were doing 40 kilograms for 8. I was like, oh yeah. They said, oh, it's your first time, just do 30. I was like, easy, you know. And I couldn't do more than 8 reps, and I was so embarrassed. So I was on a mission from then. It was like the weakest out of all of my friends. They'd been training for a little bit longer, in all fairness. But from then on, it was like, no, I don't ever want that to happen again. So I trained hard from then, but I wasn't genetically gifted or anything like that. I was just obsessed with kind of like being better with all the groups that I was in. So out of my friend group, I wanted to be stronger than them, And then when I joined Fitness First, I wanted to be the strongest at Fitness First. That was the commercial gym that I started at. And then, commercial gym at Fitness First, I figured out after a few years when I got to be the strongest there, that they weren't very strong when I learned what the Australian records were. So then I want to be the strongest. So that was kind of like my mission the whole way, So there's the cliche saying, if you're the strongest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I was always held back by my ceilings that were my own limitations that weren't set very high. So now they're quite high, and I am very strong, but I actually think I'm quite weak because I am now comparing myself to the best in the world, who are very, very strong. However, I still know I am strong, and I know that the techniques that I use, I've learned from the best, and I've taught the best. They work. Of course, there are many ways to skin a cat, but this way works as well, right? I promise you. And you can use it. I'm asking you for nothing. Just go and use it. That's what I'm asking you. Go and succeed. All right, let's do it again. Next set, a little bit heavier. You missed it, that's okay. It was more of the same. Now we're going to go on to the next exercise. So that was a vertical pull. Now I'm going to do one of my favorite shoulder health exercises. So this is a face pull. So that was a vertical pull. I guess you could say this is a horizontal pull. I'll show you the way that I do this. I take a seat on the floor and I pull it to the top of my head. So pulling it to my neck. So that's one way of doing it. Pulling it to the neck is really focusing on squeezing the shoulder blades together, which is mid-back, so rhomboids, middle trapezius, and rear deltoids. But then the next technique is face pulls to the top of the head. So there is mid-back, but then when we do that component, that's external rotation. So we're strengthening some of our rotator cuff muscles, which is good for healthy shoulders. Now, here's the technique. I prescribe these for a lot of people, and they do it standing. And I look at it, it's like, fair enough, you want to do it standing, but it is so much weaker when you do it standing. Feel it, I'm using my strength to stabilize my body. I don't even want to do it. So sit down. This is so much stronger. So the cue here is bring it high on your head and think about pulling those handles apart. And this is one of those exercises where you can do, 15, 20, 25. If you go too heavy, it's not really stimulating. I don't know how many reps that was. Normally I count, I promise, but I'm talking to you guys, so I'm losing count. But I just go till, I feel like there's not many repetitions in reserve. You can take that to fail if you want. It doesn't really matter. It's such a light weight. I'll go heavier on the next set. It's such a light weight that if you take it to fail, people say don't take those movements or any movements to fail because you're going to injure yourself. You're not going to injure yourself by, doing a set of 20 and then technique breaks down at the last set, the last rep. That's not going to happen. So once again, it's one of those exercises. You can train closer to fail and you'll recover and you won't risk injury and it's totally fine. One more set. And then I'm going to do some biceps. Girls get the girls. Is that a girl? Boys get the guys.
You were kissing them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a boy or girl. Non-binary. It's a they. I don't know. I can't see any genitals. I can't see if it's got a willy. There's got no willy. All right, one more set. Yeah. Almost done. We've got one more exercise. Check out the rear delts. Do I have big delts? Thanks for noticing. You see it?
Not bad.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, bro. I train them. All right, next up, last exercise of the day. Biceps. Girls get the girls. I'm gonna do some easy bar curls. It's just one of my ones, you know? It's just my favorite. Now, everyone's got different proportions and ratios. I'd say biceps are probably, on me, not probably, they're definitely not as strong as my triceps. So it's another reason why I don't. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. A lot of times I don't. Superset between biceps and triceps. I write the program to use the easy bar curls. So you alternate between an easy bar skull crush to an easy bar bicep curl, back and forth. But for me, I'm a lot stronger with my tricep extensions than I am with my bicep curls. So if I am pairing these ones, I'll either have to set up 2 bars, which I don't have, or choose slightly different exercises, or just separate it. Triceps as a standalone and biceps as a standalone. This is a mechanical drop set. So what I'm gonna do is start with reverse curls. Right? I love a reverse curl. It strengthens your forearms. So those are one of those muscles that kind of just look good if you have strong forearms. Strengthens your forearms, and also the reverse grip kind of takes your biceps out of the equation, and it hits the brachialis, which sits underneath it. And then when you fatigue that structure, then drop it, turn it, and now we hit biceps, which is a stronger position, and it allows us to really hit every head of the elbow flexors. So there's not just, so when people say bicep curls, they think that's just the only muscle, but it's biceps, brachioradialis, and brachialis. So 3 main flexors, but also the muscles of the forearms. You ready? Yeah, bro. Ready? Not a long rest. Up. I'll do another set of that. And then we're done. That's my session. That's a big session today. Really good session. I think you got a ton of value from all the technique, the way I structure my training, and just copy what I do, and that's totally fine. Leave a comment below if you want me to talk about anything else on the next session. That's all. Thanks for watching. Click like, subscribe. See you next time. Dude, I'm fucked.